Good morning and welcome to the Public Podcast. I am so excited to bring to you our first episode. I'm even more excited to have former Florida Senator Ron Silver as my first guest. Senator Silver has been a giant in the space of politics for over 45 years.
Oh
So
my,
I know he has a lot to share with us. But first, let me share with you who he is. Former Senator Ronald A. Silver is a husband, he's a father of two children, and he's a grandfather of three. He was born in Boston, Massachusetts, but moved to Florida in 1958. He's a graduate of the University of Miami with an undergraduate degree in finance and a law degree. Senator Silver was first elected to the Florida House of Representatives in 1978, and he served in that body until 1992. While in the Florida House, Senator Silver served as a majority whip, majority leader, and floor leader. He also chaired various committees. In 1992, Senator Silver was elected to the Florida Senate, and he served until 2002. He was the majority leader for the 1994 session. During his last term in the Senate, he was designated by both House and Senate as the Dean of the Legislature, in recognition of his standing as its longest-serving member. Throughout his tenure in the House and Senate, he was known to transcend partisanship and build strong coalitions. He served on a variety of committees, and his career in the Senate earned him praise at both state and national levels. Though retired from active politics, he remains a strong public advocate. And because of his advocacy, a prescription drug plan for the Medicare-eligible senior citizens in the state of Florida has been named Silver Saver in his honor. Since his retirement from the Senate in 2002, Senator Silver also functions as president of his own consulting firm, Ron Silver and Associates, and maintains his law practice in Miami Beach, Florida. In his legal practice, he served as assistant city attorney in the city of Miami, a Lauderdale Lakes municipal judge, city of Miami Beach prosecuting attorney, general counsel in the city of Miami, general employees and sanitation employees retirement trust, which he still currently does. And Senator Silver has a long history of community service. He has served on the task force on revenue sharing for Dade County, the Florida Israel Cooperation Committee. He was a member of the United States Trade Representatives. He was chairman of the FEMA Advisory Board. He was a past member of the Board of Directors, and legislative chair for Our Kids of Miami-Dade and Monroe County, which is a foster care agency. And he's a member of the board of directors for the Adrian Arch Center for the Performing Arts of Miami-Dade County, which is one of my favorite spaces in Miami to get entertainment, Senator. So thank you for that.
Great.
Senator Silver has received many honors and awards for his service. These include Senator of the Year in 1994. In 1994 and 1995, the Police Benevolent Society named him the Outstanding Senator of the Year. The Teachers Union of Miami-Dade County honored him for his leadership in public school education in the state of Florida. And a street in Miami-Dade County, the Ronald Silver Drive, was named after him in 2014. And these are just a few of the honors and accolades that he has received, and well-deservedly so. Good morning, Senator. Again, welcome to the Public Podcast. I am so happy to have you here, and I'm excited for our viewers to learn about you from your own mouth, your own perspective, and to share with us some of the wisdom that you have. So I have shared the official bio of Senator Ron Silver, but can you share with us who Ron Silver really is?
I had to, my phone rang, so I had to shut it off. So I apologize, but thank you so much for having me. And I I listened to you go through my biography there, and I brought back great memories that I had. Because when you start, you know, looking at the back part of it, you forget a lot of things, and you brought them out. So I thank you so much for that great introduction. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Um, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. The reason I got involved in politics was my grandfather was involved in politics in Boston, Massachusetts, and he used to take me to the headquarters, and he was a Republican in Boston, and I grew up when I was 8 years old and 9 years old. I spent a lot of my time in the political field, just as what 8 and 9 year olds do, put up signs and take down signs and things like that, and address envelopes in the headquarters. So I became addicted, for lack of a better word, I became addicted to the political scene. So when I moved to Florida, I looked to get involved in politics, and what I knew was Republican politics, but there was no Republican Party in Miami-Dade County at that time,
Oh, wow.
or the state of Florida, quite frankly. And so I joined the Young Democrats and became very much involved with them at that time, and really got to know the political scene. Such great people and governors such as Reuben Askew was one of the first campaigns I worked on. And locally in the city of North Miami Beach, where I devoted a lot of time, I like to tell this story about how I would go to city of North Miami Beach political meetings, city council meetings all the time, while my friends, especially the guys, were out looking for dates to go out with girls. I was going to city council meetings. I don't know if that gives you
That's awesome.
I don't know if that gives you any problem if I have a problem, but that's what I did. And I just became very much involved and went to city council meetings. I went to chamber meetings, city of North Miami Beach chamber meetings, just became involved in the community. And I remember Arthur Snyder was the first campaign I worked on down here. He was running for mayor of North Miami Beach, and I was part of his campaign team. And he was a no nonsense guy. I learned a lot about campaigns from Arthur Snyder. He was no nonsense. He doesn't want any excuses. And if you know anything about campaigns, as you do, you know you can't have excuses. Excuses
Right.
don't work. You get the job done, and that's what his message was, and that's what I did, and I worked very hard on that, and then just continued on going to North Miami Beach political events. So that's a
Well,
little bit about my background from my perspective.
well, thank you so much for that, Senator. So you mentioned that you were originally from Boston. What
Yeah.
brought you to Florida?
Well, my grandfather was very sick, and he had a
Mm,
very bad heart condition, and the doctor said that we needed to go to a warm climate. The family needed to go to for him.
mhm.
So that's what we did. We moved down here to Miami Beach, which was another experience that I went through. I think I was in ninth grade at the time. And just to tell your audience that if I think that's the most difficult time to leave because you have all your friendships built up and where you're moving to, there's cliquish groups
Yes.
at ninth grade that grew up since elementary school, and especially on Miami Beach, where it was a wealthy area, and we were not in that category. So we moved down for his benefit, and he shortly passed away after that. I think about
Mm,
5 or 6 months after that,
mm.
passed away. So that's why we came down here.
Okay, and believe me, I understand what you're saying about that moving at that age. My move was not as dramatic as yours. When I was 11, my mom moved me from the primary school, similar to the elementary schools here. She moved me from one primary school to another, and it took some major adjustments. So I can imagine what you went through moving from one whole state to another.
Yeah, well, I did not do good when I moved down here for that ninth grade. I was falling behind, and I fell so far behind that I had to go to summer school for the next 2 years in order to make up for that. But I did it, and I did what I had to do, and here I am.
Awesome. And I'm sure that perseverance has followed you throughout your entire life and did a whole lot of good for what you do and how you do even to this day.
Exactly.
So yours has been and still is a life of service. What inspires you to serve?
Well, again, I was very much involved in the political scene, but more than that, I had a great desire to help people. And I can't think of a better way to help people than to get involved with the issues that confront us and get something done about it. And that's what drove me to go through the whole bit about starting with an issue and going from beginning to end with that particular issue. And you encounter a lot of problems, but when you're out there campaigning, you come across people that have real serious problems that you do not know about.
Yes.
And they don't know where to go. They don't know where to go to solve the problem. And sometimes the problems are not resolved, especially by government. And
Yes.
so that's what inspired me to do something. So I would campaign, and I would go, and as you know, what you do is you go out and meet the people, see the people. You go around, like in my area that I represented, you had a lot of condominiums that had pool areas. So you go around while the people are trying to get sunshine or relax or whatever. You go around, you talk to them, and you find out about what's on their mind. Most important thing in politics is to find out what is on the people's mind and to have a relationship with the people where they feel they can talk to you, because people do not know how government works and how they can get something done. It's very complicated.
Yes.
When you call a governmental agency, you get a recording, and that recording sometimes refers you to another governmental agency, and you keep on getting referred. So that's a problem that we have in government.
And you mentioned the person to person connection you developed over the years, which we have moved from, and that's one of the issues I see with these large campaigns with thousands of people, where there is limited personal contact, limited personal connection. So as you mentioned, the people don't understand how the government works. They don't understand how politics impact their lives.
Right.
And so I think that is where a lot of the disconnect is. And so how do we get back to the place where politicians are speaking to the people and people can reach out and talk to our politicians?
Well, the first thing I think has to be done is, yeah, candidates have to recognize that, okay? They have to recognize that it's important to have a personal contact with your constituency so that you can help them. I mean, you can't have it where people are afraid to call you because you're so much above where they are, or you have so much. They view you as an important person, and they're intimidated by that sometimes. Well, we're just like everybody else. We're one of 1,000 people in an area that are no different than anybody else, but they feel intimidated by it. And sometimes we're guilty of that because of all situations that we're involved in, we sometimes don't have time to stop and give the people the proper time that they deserve to explain their situation. And one of those areas, quite frankly, is with kids today. Okay, parents don't know how to deal with kids that may be having a problem, whether it be a mental problem or whether it be a school problem or whatever. It's tough raising children today.
Yes.
I've been fortunate to have a wife that was real good. She was a teacher, but more than that, she was a partner in what we were doing. And while I was away in Tallahassee representing the people, she would take care of everything at home, and you got to have that partnership. So I was fortunate in that regard. But how people have to know that there are many resources that they can take into account when they're having a problem. Like, you know, when people recognize when they have a child that that child is a problem, and you know, we see this every day now on the news where
Yes.
the kid does something crazy, okay, you know, goes out and shoots up a thing, but that could have been prevented if he or she would have received the proper attention. So we got to do a better job of making the resources available to the individual and having personal contact with that individual. And again, you just can't tell the person, call up children and families up in Tallahassee, all right, and maybe they can help. Well, before you get to anybody on the phone, that's a big problem, okay? That is a problem which leads to your despair as an individual about frustration about getting a hold of somebody. I mean, I do that all the time, and I get frustrated. I've just had a situation with one of my credit cards that they didn't send out a renewal of the credit card. Well, I kept on getting this voicemails, do this, do that, do that. And it was in September. This is now the end of November. I started getting a renewal, and it wasn't anything to do with bad credit or anything. It was just a
Right.
policy thing because it
Yes.
was all automated. Okay, you know, you get that thing. Choose from the next 5 things that you have, and then they refer you to somebody. That's what one of our problems is today. Is the personal contact that you mentioned is not there even in the business community.
Absolutely. And you are so right. That is a major issue. But um I know that, you know, in your career as a politician, you have made some major impacts that have benefited the state and possibly the country at large. What do you regard as your most impactful contribution?
Well, let's start with the one that it was very difficult. I had proposed because of the situation today with our guns going off in the community. I had
Yes.
proposed, and because I'm an activist legislator, I filed a lot of bills, and one of the bills I filed was a 7-day waiting period for just a handgun.
Yes.
Now, I was advised by colleagues who were in the legislature before I was, you're going to be the sorriest person in the world because the NRA is going to come down on you, and you know you're going to have to devote a lot of time to this issue. But to make a long story short, I was successful. It wasn't for 7 days, but it was for 3 day waiting period before you can purchase a handgun. I put it on the ballot. It's in the Constitution of the state of Florida now. And you say, well, you know, it's. I wanted to get a vote of people on it. Now we kept it simple. That we didn't put anything else in there. We didn't put all the other issues that you might talk about the AR-15 and all that. We didn't put those. We just kept it to that waiting period because how many times have you heard that people, especially in domestic situations, okay, get out of hand and they go out immediately and they act upon their impulse.
Absolutely.
Well, I thought that let's have a waiting period. How many times have you written a letter to somebody and then looked at it the next day and said, well, I'm glad I didn't send this out. All right. Well, the same way with a gun. Okay.
Yes.
Let's wait a little bit. Let's cool off and then examine yourself and get in that position. So that we passed that bill by 84% of the people of the state of Florida voted for
Wow.
that. Okay. We hear about how, people are not follow the NRA and all that. Every county in this state, whether it be in the panhandle or not, voted for that particular issue. Obviously, somewhat less percentages, but they voted for that particular issue. It's now in the Constitution of the state of Florida. So I'm very proud of that one. And I got to tell you, I endured a lot of NRA.
I can imagine.
They put ads of me in the paper. I should be in jail, and I mean, it was tough to do, but I'm very grateful for that particular issue.
Well, thank you for that, Senator, because I think a cooling and it's not political, it's social, it's psychological that we all at times need that cooling off period.
Oh yeah. And that's what we called it. That's what we called it, cool of Florida.
That's awesome. So you became actively involved in politics from a young age, becoming committed to a life of political service. Now we have a large percentage of the population that has become politically agnostic. How do you reconcile with this phenomenon?
Well, we got to make sure the people have confidence in us and our institutions. They got to know that they work for them.
Yes.
Right now, people are frustrated, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because they have problems and they're not getting solved, whether it be Washington or Tallahassee or locally, whatever. They have the problems and they feel that the politicians aren't listening to them. So I think we got to do a better job of that. We got to educate not only the people, but the politicians on how to do that. So I would hope that we can start something, because we represent thousands of people. And it's a very difficult job to get down to the people's concerns. And, like you said, how do we do that? We just got to do a better job. I mean, we got to utilize the resources we have, whether it be the internet or whatever. And that's a problem in and of itself. that has created such a situation about how people go to the internet to find out about things. And you can't really rely on the internet because you don't know the background. I know that, like for you, when you're talking and when you're out there talking, you talk to the people and you either know the people or you do a background check to a certain extent on the person to see if they're reliable or not reliable. You just can't take people for a word like we're talking now. And I would hope that people just don't listen to me and say, oh, I'm going to do what he says. You got to activate yourself to find out something about the person. Like you started out with the program today, you know a little bit about my history. I gave you a little bit about my history. So you got something to go on. And it's your choice there, whether you do that or not. But that's what you got to do. You just can't rely on people saying something on the internet. Sorry.
That's okay. It's very I like what you just said. And just to let you know, a few days ago I was at a meeting, and after the meeting there was a table of us who were having lunch, and somehow, I guess because I'm such a political animal, somehow we got into talking to politics. And Senator, would you believe, and some of these people were highly educated, and they had no idea about the political process, whether locally, state. Right. They did not, not one of them knew that they need to attend their local city commission meeting.
Right.
So as you mentioned, it is very important that we educate our people and speak to them in a way that we are not accusing them or belittling them, just encouraging them to let them know that politics affects our everyday life.
Well, another thing that I was proud of, you asked before about some of the legislation that I passed, and one of them was the having the Holocaust taught in our public schools. So I passed that bill, and one of my constituents came to me, Mr. Steinberg, who was very much involved in the Jewish community, and he was concerned about not knowing the generation today, not knowing about the Holocaust. So we introduced that bill, and we got the Senate and the Florida State Senate to pass the bill when I was in the House. I was actually in the Senate, and the House passed it also. So that was a big accomplishment. But then again, the problem there is the follow through. That some of the areas of Florida said, "Okay, we're gonna adhere to that. We're gonna follow that." Other areas said, "No, we're not going to teach about the Holocaust."
Right.
And we see a little bit about that today with the leadership in the state of Florida not wanting the
Yes.
history of what has happened in the past to be taught. And if you don't know about the history of what happened, it will be repeated as is being seen today about what is going on. And it's so important that the people be educated. I mean, okay, I was born in 1943, so if you do the math, you'll see that I'm 80 years old now. But I didn't know what happened in the Holocaust.
Right.
I wasn't born yet, so I had to be taught and learn so that experience would not let me have that happen again. The same way with slavery. All right,
Yes.
you don't want anything to be taught, or even to the extent that they say it's beneficial. Okay, slavery was beneficial to people because
Ah,
I mean, come on. I mean, this is ridiculous, but so that was the other thing. So the gun issue and the Holocaust education bill were two of my proud achievements in the
that,
legislature. Yep.
and you know, we are better for those achievements and the
Well,
work
thank
that
you.
you put in. Thank you so much for that. You know, you mentioned about history, and I agree with you that it is so important that we visit our history, that our kids are taught about it, because so many people are going around in blissful ignorance, and
Right,
there's no real bliss in ignorance.
right.
So you know, in order to not repeat in a non-accusatory way, that you know, we all understand that, you know, if we do not tell the truth about our past,
Yes.
we will be in trouble. So somehow I agree with you that we are going to have to start talking about history again.
I I would hope so. Yeah. I mean, even if we have to do it at meetings or whatever the case might be, because again, we're going to be prohibited. I mean, that's another thing. School boards are being
Mm,
attacked today. All right. When I was in the legislature not so long ago, 20 years ago, I school board races were, you know, normal.
yes,
They just
like PTA
right,
elections.
right, exactly. But now people don't even want to serve on school boards because they're being attacked. Their families are being attacked, and it's just awful. And that's where our future is with our students and with our kids, and we got to be able to teach them. And there are different viewpoints. I want to bring something else out to you and your viewers. When I was in
Mhm.
the legislature, we used to be able to get together and talk to each other in the legislature. Now, just yesterday, I saw on the in Washington the witness and the senator were getting ready to come to blows, okay, with each other. Okay, one was challenging the other. Okay, we're gonna settle the differences now. When I was there, I'll give you an example. I would file a bill,
Mhm.
okay, and that bill you could read it and see it, and somebody would come up to me on the other side of the issue and say, "I can't vote for that bill," okay, and I would say, "Okay, well, what is it that you need for your constituents that would allow you to vote for the bill?" And the person would then say, "Okay," he would tell me what it is, and I would say, "Okay, I can help you out with that particular matter, and you will get something out of this, and I will get something out of it." And it's called compromise, all right? Because nobody has a bill that they file which is absolutely perfect. There's not such a thing as a perfect bill. So we used to be able to sit down and compromise on the issue, and that's how you get things done.
Absolutely.
I call the people today 100 percenters. The people in the legislative process today want 100% of what they. I filed a bill. I want this bill. I don't care what else happens. Well, that's not the way the government works or the legislature works. You
Our
got
life.
you got to work. You got to work with people. You got to.
Absolutely. And
So,
it's funny, you actually answered the next question that
oh,
I
okay.
had. But you know, I'm going to ask it anyways, just in case you left out anything. So the question is, you are known to have been a champion of bipartisanship during your service as a state rep and senator. Now, bipartisanship is seemingly regarded as heresy, especially from one side of the aisle. How did we get here, and how can we get away from the partisanship to recover from the gridlock that is suffocating the country?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. And bipartisanship is so important because, as I said, with a bill, no party has all the answers either. And there are imperfections in the party. I mean, I'm a Democrat, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't agree with everything the Democrats propose.
Right.
And I was the leader on so-called criminal justice issues. I chaired the Criminal Justice Committee of both the House and the Senate, and I am very strong on criminal justice issues. And I believe one of the problems we have today is there's too many excuses for people to commit crimes and they go out. And I also chaired the very important committee, Juvenile Justice Committee, which dealt with our
Mm-hmm.
justice situation. Do you know that at one time when I chaired the committee, a juvenile could commit a crime in Dade County and then go up in Broward County and commit a crime, and there was no
Mm-hmm.
record of him committing a crime in Dade County. Now, I agree that computers have made it possible now to catalog issues, and you have that information available to you now. But that's one of the problems. If you don't have a record of what this person does, and then you get the repeat offenders over
Right.
coming back into the system, you got to have some certainty. I voted, and some people didn't like it, but I voted for the three crimes and you're out.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there were imperfections in that because you didn't. It's just not committing three crimes. It's the type of crimes you commit. And what if the
Right.
crime is stealing a pencil? Well,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, okay, you can't have that. So there were imperfections in that, and I look back on that, and I probably would have filed some amendments to that bill before I voted for it. But that's what goes on in the process. So
Right.
yeah, the bipartisanship. Some of my best friends were Republicans. Okay, yeah. People, how can it be? Well, I'm not sure today I can, but before before I when I served, I had a very good relationship. One of my best friends was the president of the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
She was a lady, and she was from the Orange County area. And when she was president of the Senate, she appointed me to chair the Healthcare and Appropriations Committee. Now, that probably won't happen today, but we had a good relationship. She had faith and confidence in me that I wasn't going to go crazy with some of these,
Right.
lack of a better word, uh, some issues that Democrats had proposed. I was going to try and follow, since she was the leader of the Senate. I was trying to protect her to a certain extent.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't going to be way out there. So that's another thing I was very proud of, chairing healthcare and appropriations, our healthcare system. And under that system, we had a veterans situation. And do you know that veterans could not go to the base next that was nearest them to get their prescriptions filled, that they had to
Oh,
go?
really?
So I tried to correct that, and we were successful in doing that. But that's the type of issues that come up, and you wonder why. Why were these proposed? So we dealt with that whole healthcare issue, and very proud of that. But again, to the bipartisanship, you got to you go out. People talk about, the former Speaker of the House in Washington, and
Mm-hmm.
used to go out with President Reagan. Okay, they used to go out after 5
Right,
and
right.
smoke a
Tiffany Hill.
cigar or have a drink. That doesn't go on today. So, that just doesn't happen. And that has to happen, because that's the way you get things done and accomplished. People complain about not getting anything done. Well, you can't get things done if you don't talk to each other, and if you're not social to each other, and if you're mean to each other, and you don't have respect for the other person. You got to have respect for the other person, that they have a constituency and they have viewpoints that they're trying to address, and you're trying to address your constituents. The only way to resolve it is to sit down and talk about it. And
Absolutely. So I'm going to go off script a bit, because you mentioned earlier on about the three strikes law. And as a member of the community that has been affected most by it, I would like to, revisit, because one of the fallouts is after people come from the system, it's hard for them to get jobs, as well as a lot of them are not being allowed to vote, and that affects election outcomes. So what would you, I know you said you would have had amendments to it. What would you have done differently, and what can we do now to improve this situation?
well, again, what I was talking about was, you got to have three serious crimes. If the individual commits like an assault and battery, and then commits something else, but you just can't have a shoplifting, even though that's a big problem today.
Mm-hmm.
Can't have that as a crime that's going to initiate and do that with the three strikes and you're out. You got to have serious crimes. That's what I would amend the bill to do. If you commit three serious crimes,
Right.
I think you should three and out would apply to that. But you can't have the third crime or the second crime as a minor crime. And I'm not saying shoplifting is a minor crime, because it's become a very serious crime today, with gangs going out and doing on the shoplifting and attacking businesses and all that. So you got to have certainty in the criminal justice system that the individual is going to know that he's going to be punished, and he's going to be punished severely if he's going to commit crimes, especially crimes against people. I also passed a bill that enhanced the penalty for committing a crime against a senior citizen. Senior citizen, I'm very happy about that.
Right.
But we see that on South Beach now, and those of us in this area, we see people getting attacked for no reason at all, because they're sitting on a bus bench and they get attacked. Well, that's ridiculous. Okay, I mean, but there are enhanced penalties for that. So that I would take a more stringent look at the type of crimes that we put into that three strikes and you're out bill.
Okay, thank you for that, Senator. So my next question is, what can experienced politicians like you say or do to help our current politicians bridge the chasm that exists today?
Well, I still stay involved, and
Yes.
I even would question myself why, you know, it'd be nice to be retired and not having to deal with issues. And when like when you turn on the television and you see 4 or 5 serious crimes being committed, that's all the news is today. All the news is today about the crimes that are being committed.
It is so hard to watch the news nowadays.
And my son came to me a lot, when I was in the legislature, and he said, "Dad," this is when he was going to FSU. He said, "Dad, why is it that all the news has to be bad? Why can't there be some good news?" So he did something about it.
Mm.
He started his own TV station,
Oh,
which
good for him.
only put on good news in Tallahassee, talked about the events that were going on in Tallahassee, whether it would be a parade or whether it would be a football game or whatever. That's all his station does, is put on good news. You won't see any story about a murder or something on that. And I think he was right on with that. And so that illustrates to you what you can do as an individual. If you have an idea and you think something's wrong, go out and pursue it and be active in trying to change what's happening today. So
And
that's
to,
that's what I'm doing. I'm remaining active. And one of the things that I've decided recently to do is become very much involved in the energy issues uh,
mhm.
that are before us, which I think are critical. And whether that be installations of solar to reduce electric bills, or whether it be windmills or whatever. And that seems way out to people, they can't do anything about it. But they can let their representatives know that they're as much concerned about those issues, but they just don't have the expertise to deal with it, whether it be winds or electricity or whatever. The problem we have today, the demands on our electric grid are really serious. That's part of the infrastructure. So if we're going to deal with these issues, we got to get to have the people involved in it. Just me saying that I'm concerned about it is not involved. We got to get the people involved. And how do you do that? You educate the people as to the issues. How, first of all, you educate them to what the problem is, and then you educate them as how they can do something about it.
Absolutely.
That's what my
So,
goal and objective is now.
so to our listeners, you hear the senator get involved. And
Right.
just to add to what you said about the soul the and our environmental issues. I went to teach, I'm dating myself, but I, I have no problems with that. I am a trained teacher. I attended Teachers College in Jamaica
Oh,
in
great.
1981. And we were powered by solar energy back then. And I don't know what happened, why we walked away from it. Florida, the Caribbean, we are in the tropics. We have endless sunshine. There is no reason for us not to have solar energy as our main electrical power system.
Well, I had a company, and full disclosure, I represent them now as a solar company.
Mm.
The reason they're only interested right now in the state of Florida, and they said to me, "You know why? Because we're the Sunshine State."
Yeah.
Okay,
It,
yeah,
it's a no-brainer.
yeah, right. No, right. So they said we want to concentrate on Florida right now. Okay, and so that's what we're doing, and hopefully we're going to make some inroads. I just had a meeting with them yesterday, so and
Fantastic.
what the people have to know is you can substantially reduce your electric bill by the use of solar panels, and they've reformed all these solar panels now to where they are really effective. The time has gone by.
Yes,
Maybe in the beginning they weren't so good,
right.
but now that it I look forward to talking to you about that since you were involved in that.
Oh, absolutely. It's something that I am really concerned about, and the opportunities are there. So definitely, I'd love to talk to you about it further. So we are 1 year out from the next general elections, and I feel like people from both parties are not taking the potential outcome as seriously as we should. You have been in the trenches of politics, and you know that the outcome could create a seismic shift in both national and global politics. Senators, please speak to our listeners about this.
Well, we're in a different time zone. I mean, it's crazy. And what it points out, so your listeners know, extreme positions do not work in the system. Right? You can't have extreme positions.
Not at all.
I mean, they just don't work. And it doesn't lead to compromise either. If you get an extreme position, it's very hard to compromise on that. So we are as I explained to you before, expressed to you before, we are in different times. And it seems to me we are going backwards instead of forwards. Now, when there's a candidate out there who's talking about creating concentration camps for individuals, okay, for those individuals that come over here, or deporting people. Now, the immigration issue is a problem. There's no question about it. We cannot have thousands and thousands of people coming into our system, but we ought to be able to deal with it in a concentration camps. We went through that once before.
Right.
And other people did. And another aspect of extreme position, do away with the Constitution. I would hope your people understand what doing away with the Constitution means. It doesn't mean your life is going to be like it is today. It's going to be completely different. If you think you're going to have freedoms that you have today, you're not going to have any of those freedoms. You do away with the Constitution. And I'll just bring up one of the issues I brought up before. If you have something simple as a contract that you enter into, you don't have the rule of law involved where you can sue on that particular contract to have it enforced. If there's no rule of law in that regard, you're going to have no reason for a contract, no reason to enter into a contract. So these are very difficult times, and the people need to wake up. They need to get involved. They need to do something about this. They got to reject these really extreme positions that there are. And I just feel so strongly about it because our country is at stake. Our country is at stake in our democracy. That tremendous experiment that the people came over from England and created this situation, that's going to fail if we don't do something about it. So we got to become involved, and you got to reject these crazy principles about concentration camps.
You heard the senator, people, get involved, please.
Yep.
So during
let me just say one thing. Your vote does count. Okay. Our voting participation is terrible. We just had an election here locally where 15% of the people voted. So when you have 15% of the people voting, that means 85% of the people are being affected by them not voting. And it doesn't make sense. Your vote does count. The more you vote, the more things will change, and it will change in what you're concerned about.
Absolutely. And for democracy to work, we have to vote.
Right, that's for sure.
It's funny. I have some millennial friends, and I'm not trying to pick on the millennials, but I have one in particular who was telling me that we need to have term limits on senators and representatives. And I told her we do. So she's like, why? I said, we have elections. That is our term limit as a democracy. But I don't believe that people fully understand their responsibility in maintaining that democracy.
No, they don't. And they can be effective in it. As I said to you, that gun issue that I talked about, the waiting period, we were able to get the votes out that demonstrated to the people that are gun advocates that something can be done with the gun issue if you go out and vote. And we had 84% of that vote for that particular issue. And by the way, on the gun issue, I just want to state this. We had testimony before my committee on that issue. And the NRA members came to the committee and said they do not need an AK-47 to go hunting.
Right.
These are the NRA members. So they were out of touch with their leadership. The leadership wants the AK-47s because they are monetarily affected by the issue. The leadership is. But the people aren't, because nobody needs an AK-47 to go out and kill a deer. I mean,
that means if you use an AK-47 to shoot a deer, you can basically you're going to obliterate that deer. So
yeah, right. yeah, you're not going to have any deer.
Exactly. So during the previous administration, we experienced countless anomalies. I believe that there were so many that we almost normalized them to the point where the former president is again the leading candidate for his party. Can you share your thoughts about this?
Oh, for sure. We have normalized a lot of that policy that the former president espoused. We certainly did, and it's in existence today. It's even more today than it was the last election, which concerns me. But again, we have a candidate for the presidency today that is telling us what he's going to do. He's telling us he's going to do away with the Constitution. He's going to install concentration camps. He's going to deport thousands of people. And I just want to add this. Immigration is a problem, but we have these people who are being subjected to the worst type of activity, and that's why they are leaving.
Yes.
So from a humanistic standpoint, we are trying to help, but we got to do something about it. We got to make it more orderly. We just can't have people coming over. And I just wanted to make sure that people understood that while I think they're an immigration reform, I know why these people are coming. They're coming, they want a better life. And where do you get that better life? You get that better life in the United States of America. And what a candidate is doing today, who's running for president, wants to do away with those situations where people want to come to our country because of the great country we are. But he wants to do away with those. Well, that's my dog. In case you can hear it, that wasn't me. I don't bark very often, but I bite.
Thank you for that passionate appeal, Senator, because at the end of the day, I'm an immigrant, and we look up to, in any country you visit, people look up to the United States as the big brother. I am someone with a big brother, and I have so much love and respect for my big brother. So when I say we look up to the United States as a big brother, not perfect, but
yeah, well, it won't be perfect, no.
Absolutely, that's the example that is out there for people to follow. So we have to maintain what we have and improve on it, of course.
Well, the fact of the matter is, and it's because we're so good that people want to come here from wherever they are. But we have a situation where we're asking to destroy what makes us great, and people have to really wake up. And we are not going to be that great country that we are today if we vote for a certain individual.
Yes, sir. So I must confess to you that I'm still in grief over the devastating effects of COVID-19.
Yes.
The pandemic altered the country and the world in so many ways. we have lost almost 7 million lives globally, and over 1.1 million lives have been lost in this country. I feel like not enough is being spoken about this, and not enough responsibility is being assigned to the former president, especially by Democrats. Can you share your thoughts about this?
Yeah, well, I forget what it was that he wanted, some sort of horrendous situation that would cure everything, that if we just took this. And there again, one of our institutions is being attacked. The institution that has control over our health care being attacked. And, and maybe they didn't do everything right.
Mhm.
Maybe they did some things that were not right. And maybe closing down our school system altogether was wrong. Maybe, who knows? But we had never encountered anything like that, so we did the best we could, and
Mhm.
that's what I think is important. But to do away with the, I forgot the agency. I'm trying to think of while I'm talking. That deals with the healthcare, the CDC or whatever the
Yes.
officials are. So they are being attacked. And if you don't have an agency, and the people who are working in that agency are being attacked, their families are being attacked, and that's what's happening in all our institutions. You have the FBI, people working hard in the FBI who are
Mhm.
doing what they're supposed to do, doing their jobs, and they're being attacked, and their families are being attacked. We can't have that in this country. We can't attack people for doing their jobs, even if you disagree with what they do. But as far as the pandemic is concerned, there probably has been a lot of mistakes that were made, and I recognize that. But that's the first time we had to deal with that particular issue. So let's learn by it. Let's have a history
Yes.
about.
Again, the importance of history. But see, I believe that, and evidence shows that we could have been in this situation prior under former administrations. I think we had MERS under former President Bush.
Yep.
We had SARS, I think, and SARS, Zika, and Ebola under President Obama. And somehow they were able to get in front of it and prevent what could have been other pandemics prior. And I don't know that anybody else would have got away with a pandemic that killed 1.1 million Americans. We don't talk about it. And I I don't know how I can get out of this feeling of grief and devastation that haunts me every single day, and people are still dying from it. So
Absolutely. Yeah, it hasn't gone away. And I think it falls into the category of people saying that's not going to happen to us. Okay. People, they're in denial. And that's why maybe nothing was done to try and prevent what happened, because it seems so outrageous that something like that could happen, and
mhm.
people get into that. Well, it's not going to happen to us. It's like a tornado or a hurricane. People don't listen to the hurricane reports. It's not going to happen to us, and so we got to pay more attention to that. I think again, history will teach us what could have been done and what should have been done, and where we failed in our ability to deal with that issue. But it hasn't gone away, and
No,
we
it hasn't.
deal with it now. And to think about the hospital care workers that had to deal with that issue on a daily basis when they came into the hospital. I just got done spending 5 weeks in the hospital. I
Oh,
know
wow.
that's not any fun being in the hospital. So
Mm-hmm.
patient, they got affected by the virus, and the hospital care workers. We don't pay enough attention to the doctors and the nurses that had to deal with those instances.
Right,
mean,
you're so correct. One of my sisters is in respiratory care. So
wow.
she was literally at the forefront of it. And she tells me that if people had a full understanding of COVID, they would take it more seriously.
That's right. That's right. Exactly.
So based on where the country was in 2020, an experienced leader was a prescription that was needed. And our current president's policies have stabilized the country somewhat. He is not getting the credit I believe he deserves, and the noise that he's too old is growing louder.
Right.
What advice would you give to the president and Democratic leaders to counter this?
Well, I think the advice I would give to them is that they have to show the contrast between the former president and the current president. Now, what the current president he's been remarkable. He's in what he's done, and one example of that is the money for the structure bill, and that was so much in need. When you talk about our sewer systems, you talk about our roads, you talk about our bridges that are failing and falling apart. He was able to get money for that, and the former president didn't do anything about that. Okay, except maybe his structure was building a wall. Okay, he didn't even do a good job of that. But the bottom line is that I would give him advice. Yeah, I still believe the American people, the vast majority of the American people, are not interested in the extreme positions that the former president had. And I think when they go out and vote, when the time comes to vote, I believe that they're going to be all right. We're going to give the credit to the current president. And the age thing. Let me tell you. I'll admit that I'm not as quick and sharp as I was when I was younger. I can't get to this phone as quickly as I used to be able to, and I miss some calls because of that. And maybe that's a problem. But the fact of the matter is, experience does count.
Yes.
It does count. And I think, I mean, when we see the current president meet with the president of China just yesterday, they have a relationship that is built up over the years, so they can rely on what they have done for each other, to each other, or whatever, and have
Absolutely.
that basis. And you just, I think that's worth something. Yes, you slow down, but I don't know how this president does it at 80 years old.
No.
Flying from country to country and going to Israel and going here, going there. And I remarked to my wife yesterday, watching him at a press conference, he spent all day in negotiations with the president of China, and then he had to go to a press conference and answer from the press. Well,
yes,
many younger people that can do that. So I think he's in good shape, and I don't think that should be a factor at all.
I agree with you. I don't know how he does it. Earlier this year, I flew to Ghana, and when I got there, I slept for almost an entire day before I could recover. So, you know, I think the media needs to just be more objective and tell the truth, because there's nothing like truth. And
absolutely, you hit the nail on the head. Tell the truth. Tell the truth. What you do. Now, it takes time. You're not going to have the structures built and revised in a day or two or a year or two, and that's what his problem is today. People can't. People have to see the building of a new bridge or the building of a new electric plant or whatever the case might be, and they don't see that right now. But you got to explain to them how long it will take to build that structure. Like they went to Philadelphia. I think it was Philadelphia that they went to on a bipartisan basis, and showed what the bridge was looking like. It's going to be built there, the new bridge, and that's what you got to keep on showing people what's going to be done with this money. It's just not allocating a sum of money out in the open. You got to be specific. My advice to him is be specific. What are you going to do in Miami-Dade County? What structure
Mhm.
going to be able to build and revise with that money? And when people see what you can do, I think they'll have a different attitude towards it.
I agree with you. Have more messengers and have more local messengers.
Right. Yeah,
I work on infrastructure projects, so I know the benefits that come with it, not only for the community, but also for workers.
right, exactly. You hit
And,
it.
and there are so many opportunities in these on these infrastructure projects rather. So, like you
Jobs,
said,
jobs.
keep keep sharing the message.
Yep.
So if not President Biden, who else could you support as a Democratic candidate?
Well, I mean, let's put it this way: we have some very young people who are coming up, like the governor of Kentucky. Very much,
Mhm.
very much impressed with him. But I'm not sure. I mean, the former representative from Ohio, I can't think of his name right now, but there are people I could support, but they don't have the backing of the financial industry, which you need,
Yes.
and the business community. You have to get the business community. I'm not sure I'm looking for anybody. I'm having difficulty answering your question because I'm not looking for anybody else right now. So,
I I agree. Just a thought. Just a
right, yeah,
thought.
I
So uh, um on that note, who would be your ideal Republican candidate?
oh, there's some good people. I mean, I I'm impressed with Governor Christie. Uh,
Yes.
okay. I'm even impressed with the former governor of South Carolina, Haley.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm not saying I would support her because there are some issues that I need to get clarified, but I'm impressed with them. I'm not impressed with most of the Republican candidates, so I couldn't vote for any of them, the rest of them, um, including our governor, by the way. Just so you're not wondering if I couldn't support him either. So there's not a Republican candidate that I could enthusiastically support.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So you mentioned earlier about the incident in the on the Senate floor yesterday,
Right.
with the report of the U.S. Senator challenging the Teamster union leader to fight. And then there was a congressman who claimed that he was hit in the back by former Speaker Kevin McCarthy.
Right.
Would you serve in this current political climate?
Well, I mean, first thing, I'm happy that they didn't have guns.
Yes.
They, that would have been utilized. Like, and talk about going back in time. That's the way we used to resolve disputes, if you remember correctly, with the Cowboys. They used to
Yes.
resolve them by shooting each other.
Mm-hmm.
Can't go back to that. And it's decorum. I'm glad that our old senator, Democratic senator, who chaired the
Yes.
stepped in and prevented that from happening. So old people can do some good things, all right, and they can
Mm-hmm.
act quickly. And he was able to get the issue back to normal, and he chastised the senator. He said, "We're senators, and we don't deal like that." So that old guy had the ability to be able to do that. So that's good for you, old guys.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. Um, you mentioned earlier about your friends. You have friends who are deeply rooted in the Republican Party and its culture.
Right.
How do you maintain your relationships in this political divide?
Well, there's a lot of people that have had this situation that they have done away with their friendships. All right, they're
Mm-hmm.
not going to be friends. I mean, I have people that refuse to be friends with those folks. I have maintained a relationship with those people, and I emphasize this. I can't do away. I mean, it hurts me to talk to them, but you cannot change people's minds by just ignoring them and saying they don't exist anymore.
Right.
So I maintain contact with them, even though I can't. I point out to them every time they espouse one of their principles how crazy that is. But I have the ability to do that. If I'm not talking to them or not doing that, I don't have the ability to do that. So we gotta. I feel strongly that friendships are more than just political issues that you deal with. Some of these people, I think, would come to my aid if I had to have help, whether it be health wise or whatever. Even though they have these crazy viewpoints, they would come to my aid and help me. So I maintain those friendships.
Thank you for that, Senator. And I believe as we approach Thanksgiving,
Yeah,
those are wise words that I would encourage our listeners to heed to and use as examples for how to deal with people that might not necessarily agree with. And it's not just politics. I mean, we don't agree on other issues, but we are so passionate about the politics.
right. Yeah, you just never know. And in the circumstance after circumstance of when you need somebody in a time of need, help, you need help, that you have to go to somebody, and that person might be the person that you disagree with politically, but that's okay. They're going to help you.
Absolutely.
I mean, we have family members that we so that's you know anyway. Hopefully, we can deal with that.
Yes, and so this leads right into the next question. Do you believe that we can get past this divisive culture that has seeped into our politics, and if so, how?
Well, it's going to be more difficult, okay, than it was yesterday. Okay,
Mhm.
it's going to be more difficult to get back to normalcy, and I think we can get there because I think the people of this country are reasonable, and I think that they desire to have a job, to take care of their families, and all that. And I think the only way we can do that is if we adhere to our basic rights, freedom, and constitution, and those particular matters. And the more that we see what could happen if we don't do that, I think we are going to be on the right track to bringing some normalcy to the situation now. And I just look forward to that. It's going to be difficult because there's a situation where we're dealing with a cult where people just blindly follow this person. And in order to get away from the cult, you got to destroy the issue that created the cult. And
Mhm.
we're talking about is getting back to our basic principles, which I hope we can do.
So I believe we need hope that we will get past where we are. What message of hope can you share with us?
Well, I think there's hope always. I mean, as you can see on the issue of the recent elections, people are viewing their freedom, and I'm talking about women particularly right now, are exercising their freedom of choice, that they want choice. They don't want the government telling them what to do. And I used to be Republicans didn't want government interfering in their.
Yes.
We remember that, you can't have government interfering in your lives. So I think that there's hope there that, and there's only hope if the people, reasonable people, get out and vote. There's hope. If you don't vote, you're not going to have of a country to be proud of, and have your freedoms, freedom of speech, freedom of press, freedom to protest.
Definitely, definitely. So you still work as a consultant. You
Yes.
still serve your community. Outside of service, what do you do for enjoyment?
Well, sports. I'm a big sports fan. Big sports fan. Being from Boston, I'm a Boston Red Sox fan up and down, and I am revised to a Miami Dolphins fan now that they're winning. And people say, in Miami we only support winners. Well, that's true to a certain extent, and so
Yes.
This is true. So I now have my daughter that is involved with the Dolphins, rooting for them, and I went up to her house up in Broward in Palm Beach County, and we watched the early morning game in Germany.
Mhm.
Now, when I had season tickets to the Dolphins game in the beginning, and I always took my son. Now, I never took my daughter for whatever reason. I don't know, but okay. Well, I probably know the reason. Okay, but so I'm trying to make up now. My son's up in Tallahassee, and my daughter, I am now taking in the Dolphin games either by television and supporting her. So yeah, that's what I do for enjoyment, and I
That's
sleep.
all.
And I sleep a lot too.
Oh, good. Sleep is very important. And I have to say, if you can sleep, I notice the older I get, the harder it is to sleep. And I've been a sleeper all my life. So
This is
that's a gift in itself.
yes.
And you actually answered the next question because I was going to ask you about being from Boston and living in Miami, who your what your favorite sports are and which
Yes.
are your favorite teams. So you answered them. So any guess on the championships?
Well, my Boston Red Sox are not involved in that, so they're not the championship caliber anymore. Uh, but I think the Dolphins have a good chance of making the playoffs. I think my Miami Hurricanes, if we can ever get a quarterback, we're gonna be all right. Football, I
Mhm,
look for them very much, and the rest of it. I used to be a Boston Celtics fan, basketball, but now
mhm.
I'm a big Miami Heat fan. So I
Oh,
switched a little bit on that.
oh,
That's
good. Good.
well,
I love sports. My dad introduced me to sports when
oh,
I
all
was
right.
a child, boxing, cricket.
Okay.
Um, when I came here, I started watching basketball in Jamaica. And back then, my favorite team was the Bulls, the Chicago Bulls, of course.
Really? Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Now my favorite basketball team is the Warriors. I've been a Warriors fan
Oh,
since.
really? Oh,
Oh
okay.
yeah, I've gone to San Francisco to watch them play. I watched them play in Miami, and I was I felt kind of guilty because I was cheering for them
Oh, wow.
in the
Wow.
House of the Heat. But I've been a fan since before they became champions. So
Oh,
I'm not really a wagonist, and I'm beginning to learn to appreciate football because I didn't understand it when I just came here. And my favorite I don't know that I have a favorite team, but my favorite football player has been Russell Wilson over the years. So I guess wherever he goes, I go. I also do like the Eagles, and
oh, okay.
I'm very proud of where Miami is right now.
As long as you don't like the Jets and the New York, this,
No,
that's where I draw a line. But I had a business associate of mine tell me they don't like football. He didn't like football at all. He said it's a very violent sport.
Mhm.
Why he didn't like it, and he was a big soccer fan. As a result of that, he watched a lot of soccer rather than
Yes.
because of the violence.
Yeah. My high school was a big soccer school. But over the years, for whatever reason, I wouldn't say I'm not interested, but I'm more gravitated to American football than
Oh, okay.
soccer. So,
Right. Go
but
Dolphins.
yes, I'm really proud of them. But Senator, I really appreciate your time. I thank you so much um, for gracing us with your presence and your wisdom. And we look forward to having you again if you would be so generous.
Oh,
And
absolutely. Anytime. I would
th-
love
th-
it. I'd love to do some political analysis with you and
oh,
raise.
great.
So I appreciate you asking me to be here because I really firmly believe and am strong in my belief that this country is where we are today, that we need to change the direction from what the former president had. And I can't emphasize enough, as I have during this presentation, that our democracy is at stake.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, sir. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning into the Publia podcast. To support us, please like and subscribe to our channel, and we will see you next time.